Welcome to Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I'm going to be finishing my review of the Beetlejuice movies, 1 and 2. And just a fair warning, as I said the last episode, there will be spoilers. I am reviewing the plot and the concepts of this movie. So, just fair warning, again, spoilers. So, if you intend to watch the movie and don't want to know what's going on, you might want to wait to listen to this episode until you've watched the movie. So, also, I'm going to skip the usual introduction just so I have more time to get through the rest of this plot and then talk about some of the concepts in the movie once I'm done with that. So, we're just going to dive right back into the review here. So, in the last episode, I ended with Lydia and Delia back at the house, sort of getting everything wrapped up from the funeral and of Charles, of Lydia's father, and also preparing for a wedding that is going to be happening on Halloween night. And so on the same day of that wedding, Astrid, who is the daughter of Lydia, the granddaughter of Charles, that character from the first movie, she has been invited by a teenager of around her same age. As far as in the plot in the movie, she is older than the character is. The actress is older than the character is. She's invited to visit Jeremy, this boy that she met in town, to go over and visit him and help pass out candy for Halloween for trick-or-treaters. And so her mom takes her there in her car, and at this point, Astrid has already told Jeremy all about her parents, her mom, what she does, and then her dad and how he passed away. And so he has invited her again just to hang out and pass out candy. He's very vague on what they're going to do, which is kind of weird, but it makes sense when I get to this part here. So Lydia drops Astrid off at the house, and then goes back and is talking with another actress from the first movie, Jane, the real estate agent, about this boy that Astrid has met. And so that sort of cuts back and forth between that and Astrid and Jeremy in Jeremy's room. And they start talking, and it turns out Jeremy confesses that he's not really interested in passing out candy or eating pizza or anything. And he's actually more interested, of course, in Astrid herself. And so they end up kissing. And as they're doing so, they start to rise into the air. And Astrid at first is just really happy because of of kissing this boy. But then she notices they're not on the floor anymore. And so she falls, and then he slowly drifts down to the floor. And that's when she finds out and realizes that, for one, her mother does have abilities, and two, she has them as well. And that Jeremy has not exactly been completely straight with her as far as what's been going on with him. He didn't pick up that handbook for the recently deceased at a yard sale. It was given to him because he had died. And he's been stuck on the property, not able to go any further than his treehouse where he met Astrid since then. And that's also when, coming back to Lydia and Jane, they're talking about real estate on the street where Jeremy lives, where Jeremy used to live and is still there. And it turns out the Jane has had a lot of success with all the houses on that street except for one. And it's actually the house where Jeremy's family is located. And it's actually where they died. Jeremy had told Astrid one story about how he died, and Jane told the true story of how he died. And they are somewhat different in that he, I believe it was he actually killed his parents, or at least allowed for them to be killed. Let me get back to you. I haven't actually been looking at my guide here, this Wikipedia document here. So anyway, let me check. So yeah, so after Astrid realizes that Jeremy is a ghost, he tells her that he does want to be with her, but she doesn't think that's possible because she's alive, he is not. And he tells her that if she goes with him to the netherworld to help him come back to life again, he will help her find and meet her father again. Again, for Astrid, her father died years ago. So yeah. Meanwhile, like I said, Lydia learns from Jane Butterfield, the character from the first movie, that Jeremy had actually murdered his parents 23 years earlier and died when the police tried to arrest him. So at this point, Astrid reads a certain set of incantations or words from the handbook for the recently deceased, and Jeremy creates a doorway using the same method as was used in the first movie, and basically drawing a doorway on a wall with chalk and knocking 3 times, and so he can pass through it, but until Astrid reads these certain words, she can't. But she reads the words, and she ends up going with him into the afterlife, or other side, at least the waiting room section, or that middle realm, whatever it is. So Lydia gets to the house to find Astrid, to rescue her, really, because now she knows that the family that Astrid is with is all ghosts. And she gets there, but not in time. By the time she gets there, she actually sees Astrid going through the door, which then closes and can't be opened again easily from that location, without the handbook anyway. So Lydia doesn't know what to do, and all she can think of to do is to summon Beetlejuice and ask him what's going on. And he tells her basically what Jeremy has already admitted, that well, really, he tells her more than that. He tells her that Jeremy has tricked Astrid into exchanging her life for his in the netherworld. Of course, Astrid doesn't know this. She thinks that she's just going to be able to meet her father there. So there's at this point, Beetlejuice says, "I can help you, but there's a price," as there always is in these movies. And of course, the price is the same as it was going to be in the first movie, is that they need to get married. He needs to get married to Lydia, and he wants to because he does apparently like her. And he's also trying to do that so that he will not have to face Dolores, who is still after him. And so Beetlejuice blows open a hole between the worlds using a similar method to the door, except he, of course, being dramatic, draws a bomb on the wall of the house that Lydia met him in. So the original house there, where the first movie took place, in the attic, in the same place as before. There are other things here that I'm not putting in because there's just so much, but this is the general main plot here. So he's already at this point to disguised Bob, his main employee, as himself as a decoy. So Wolf Jackson, the detective, finds out, gets an alarm that Beetlejuice has done this, that he has brought a living person into the netherworld, which is funny because he doesn't know about Astrid at the time. And so he starts a manhunt for Beetlejuice, and doesn't get Beetlejuice, but he does get Bob. So Bob is put in an interrogation room, and of course, after Jackson tries to interrogate Bob, whose lips are actually sewn shut. He's found by Dolores, who also tries to get him to tell her where Beetlejuice is, but of course he doesn't even know at this point. And so, I'm not sure, she probably would have done it anyway. But before she leaves, she takes Bob's soul. So she's leaving, basically, or sending several spirits to the afterlife permanently at this point. So Beetlejuice and Lydia search for Astrid, and meanwhile, Jeremy takes Astrid to the afterlife's bureaucracy, the whole underground complex there, or at least it appears to be underground, and reveals that he's going to sacrifice her life for his. And so she's taken to he is directed to another window in this whole complex, and Astrid is taken by two guards, old-fashioned guards, to where this transport called literally the Soul Train is located. Because what happened is, and Jeremy said that reading the words in the book would just let her enter the world just let her enter the netherworld. What it did as well is, it was an agreement on her part, even though she didn't know it, to sacrifice her life in exchange for Jeremy's. So she is put on this train that is supposed to go. It has actually several stops, but the one that she's supposed to go into is the Great Beyond. Now, this is one of the amazing little details that they added in this movie. This train has multiple stops. It has the let me see here, the Great Beyond, which is where most spirits or ghosts go after they pass. Sort of the afterlife after the afterlife. There's also the pearly gates in reference to some kind of heaven. None of this is really fleshed out. It's just sort of vague ideas and concepts that fit the story. And but you can either look into them or not. Even just the references are really interesting. But so there's the pearly gates, the Elysium Fields, or the Fields of Elysium, which is a term for the afterlife, where that stems from Greek mythology, where heroes would go after they had passed. And then, of course, there is the other realm called the Fires of Damnation, which is likely to be some version of an unpleasant, fiery version of hell. And so, but of course, Astrid is supposed to go to the Great Beyond. And now the Soul Train section here, I won't go into a ton of detail about it, but it's they use a lot of wordplay in these couple of movies here, especially this one, because for anyone that is familiar with the TV series from decades ago now, that was all about music and dancing. That's where the name of the train comes from, and they actually have people dancing and music in just playing throughout this train station. So anyway, Astrid is put on this train. Beetlejuice separates from Lydia. Let me get back to my first document here. So the train is about to leave, but after Lydia and Beetlejuice split up, she's able to get on the train at a different point, Lydia is, and find Astrid and then pull them off the train and get them back into the station. Of course, at this point, there's guards and members of Jackson's police sort of squad everywhere. And they find a doorway and open it, and they don't know where they're going, but it's anywhere better than this area full of guards. So they open this doorway and fall into this endless sand wasteland. And it turns out this is one of the moons of Saturn, and an area that anyone who watched the first movie will be very familiar with, because that's where one of the places that spirits will go if they try to leave these designated areas that they're supposed to stay in after they pass for various lengths of time, according to the rules, which are not, you don't know who set the rules, you don't know who made them. They're just at things, guidelines that are there, and this is what happens in these cases. But, of course, the Maitlands, who are not in this sequel, but they're mentioned, the Maitlands were the first to visit that land in the first movie. And so they're Lydia and Astrid, mother and daughter, end up in this world. And, of course, what comes toward them, a sandworm, the same creature that did Beetlejuice in the first movie, near the end there. Or at least ended whatever version of him that was there before. It's really not clear, because if he's already dead, then what happened when he was sort of consumed by that sandworm? So there's a lot of vague ideas in these movies that I really find interesting, because you don't know what's going on completely. Makes them more, I guess, just otherworldly, but yeah, so this sandworm comes after them, and a hand comes out of nowhere, and it turns out it's Astrid's father, Richard, Lydia's former husband. And he saves them and pulls them out of that realm, and brings them back to the Netherworld bureaucracy complex. So, meanwhile, back in the living world, Delia has set up the ceremony in memory of Charles, a private ceremony, just herself, involving two snakes that were, according to the purchase details when she bought them, they had been defanged. Turns out that wasn't the case. As she's saying this, giving the speech in the ceremony, they end up, both of them end up biting her and in the neck, which of course kills her, and she sort of comes to in the Netherworld, the waiting room. And so she summons Beetlejuice, who is around, to help her find her husband, Charles, who she knows is dead. And he agrees in exchange for help finding Lydia, because they've separated at this point. So also, in the middle of all this, Jeremy, he goes to this place where he has to get this passport stamped by another officer in this complex, and Lydia and Astrid try to stop him, or Astrid tells her father to stop Jeremy from getting this done, and he gets his passport stamped, but it's not the right stamp, and it turns out that the officer is Beetlejuice in disguise, and he ends up sending him to that other fiery realm that I mentioned earlier there. So he sort of takes care of Jeremy's interference in the whole movie there. So they go. Lydia and Astrid get home after meeting and reuniting with Richard. So the whole family together again, and Richard sort of tells them they need to to get closer again. They needed to be there for each other, and then shows them a way to get back to the world of the living. Meanwhile, because of the hole in the wall left in the house where everything happened in the first movie, all of the workers in Beetlejuice's call center escape into the living world, into the land of the living, which they're not supposed to. So everything is really just chaos at this point. And so let me see here. So Lydia decides to go through with this wedding, and everyone meets at this church. And everyone there, except for everyone that's there, other than the characters in the movie, and including Rory, the husband to be, everyone that's there, it turns out, they are all social influencers, social media people. Because this is a huge event, this major celebrity at this point, which is Lydia, is getting married. So Beetlejuice arrives with Delia, and this wedding ceremony begins, not for Rory and Lydia, but for Beetlejuice and Lydia. So this whole end sequence happens, and Dolores shows up. It's end sequence. It's really just the end of the last act of the movie, I guess you could say. Dolores shows up to crash the wedding that Lydia doesn't even want. Between Astrid and Delia and this handbook for the recently deceased, they're able to make a portal to that moon of Saturn and summon the sandworm to come and deal with Dolores and also Rory. They both become sandworm food. And there is more here in this movie, but it's basically just the ending. I'm just trying to think here. But in the end, of course, Wolf Jackson and his force arrive, but too late to really do anything. And Beetlejuice literally freezes them in place. And so, of course, Delia, who's been trying to find Charles ever since she died, which this is when Lydia and Astrid find out about that. Delia is reunited with Charles in the Netherworld, and they both get on the Soul Train to go to the Great Beyond. And Lydia ends her TV series Ghost House to spend more time with Astrid, and still has nightmares about Beetlejuice. And that's really the end of the movie. And there's not much time here to go over anything else. Just keep in mind, this is all about the afterlife and what's there. Are there different stages? Again, is there like this middle realm where you go before you actually go on to whatever comes after? These are all just concepts, and the movies do a really good job at playing off of so many little details like that. The Soul Train, the whole train station aspect of, because people reported being their loved ones saying that they're in train stations waiting to go somewhere. Anyway, great movie. I recommend it. And thank you all for listening, and I'll talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.